close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go. Finding life along the way, melodies we haven't played. No, I don't want no rest. Echoing around these walls, fighting to create a song. I don't wanna miss a beat. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go.
All right, hey everyone. Glad to be back. Seems like it's been a while. It's only been since last Thursday, and I've been working with John the past couple Thursdays. So, but this is going to be kind of a start of something new. So, glad to be here. So I'm going to start out with the stream by explaining kind of what the next roughly 6 months is going to hold for the stream. So if you've tuned into any of the previous streams, you know we've been working on my net check project, and what that is basically a validation tool, a web app that helps validate network state for specific devices, post a change in the network or something relative to that. So we're actually going to be shifting gears and moving towards actually studying for a certification. So what's a little different from that is, I won't be coding, for the full hour, 2 hours, however long the stream is that day. What we'll be doing is kind of taking an exam topic of the exam that I'm studying for, which, if you haven't guessed or read my Twitter by now or looked at the screen, it's the DevNet Expert, specifically the lab exam. So we'll be going through kind of a specific topic for each stream. So tonight we'll be looking at I guess you can call it a network automation Python library called Scrapli, and we'll dive a little bit into Nornir as well. And if all that seems foreign to you, you're in the right spot. We'll be looking at both those libraries, why they're used, what they even are, and writing small little scripts to run against my home lab. So, but before that, let's just kind of start with the basics. So, I've mentioned this on Twitter and in past streams, but the Cisco DevNet Expert certification was recently announced at DevNet Create about 2 weeks ago, October 19th. And ever since, that's kind of news a lot of people have been waiting on, that especially that are in the kind of the DevNet realm and have taken some DevNet certifications. And I'm one of those people that have been kind of just waiting for this announcement. And so obviously, with it being announced now and some testing dates, I'll be trying to get into that very first time slot, first week of testing. So the very first day you can book for is May 2nd of 2022. And, it's November 2nd now, so it's exactly 6 months from the day. So my goal is I would love to book it that day, but I know there's a lot of others that will also be trying to book. So if I have to book it sometime just in that week, that's fine by me. But we're going to be working towards that, and that's what the next 6 months of these streams will be. Now, just some kind of disclaimers if you're following along. One, this is kind of my study time. So there's going to be times where I maybe mess up things that I may not interpret right the first time. And if you're watching, I'm sure, there's going to be topics that you may know better. That's great, actually. If you're in the stream or in the live stream, please, if you notice I'm going down the wrong path, or if you know just a little something different, please put something in the chat. I'm more than open to constructive criticism. So that's kind of one. Two, this isn't the only time I'll be studying. So if you're also thinking, hey, it would be cool to watch Dan as he studies and goes on this journey of studying for the DevNet Expert Lab, I will definitely be studying more than twice a week. I think that it shouldn't, I don't think I have to say that, but I'm studying outside of these streams. So there'll be topics that, we may not go over every single topic on the exam, just topics that I feel would be amusing to stream and then also to keep, an audience engaged. Now, if there are specific topics that, the live stream or I get feedback on Twitter about, then I may record some videos. So I know that the streams can get choppy sometimes, and I apologize. Especially the past few streams have gotten a little choppy. So I do plan to record some content as well, smaller videos as well, 10 to 15 minutes max. So that way, they're a little more bite-sized chunks of the content and explain a little bit more, maybe go a little more in depth. So those are kind of the disclaimers. So before I guess we in a little bit of Nornir, just wanted to quickly, we're not going to go through the whole exam because I've already gone through these topics on a previous stream, but I just wanted to highlight what we'll be focusing on for this stream. So for this stream, we'll be focusing on exam topic 3.0, the network programmability and automation. And there's one topic here, 3.2, is automating the configuration of a Cisco IOS XE network device based on provided architecture and configuration, and includes these components. So you see, interfaces, static routes, VLANs, ACLs, access control lists, BGP, and OSPF. So there's now, to me, I can interpret this a few ways. I can interpret that this exam topic will be about using a traditional SSH transport and using a library that would interact on a device via SSH, and parsers, using like Genie parsers and TextFSM. And then on the other side, which I think is probably more relative, I would say, especially with iOS XE devices, that this topic is talking about Yang models, and specifically using RESTconf and NetConf to interact with these devices. But yeah, so I figured, let's start out with something pretty simple. And I've put out there before that I'm looking to create some basic content as well, along with the streams, just to help people get off the ground with some of these automation topics. So let me see here. Sorry. Okay, I think we're back. All right, sorry about that. The OBS, the streaming studio software is saying it just dropped the stream, so, and of course it did. I'm gonna quit streaming to Twitch. Let's try that. Okay. I think we're steady now. Still says I'm live. Okay. So I just dropped the Twitch stream. So that way we're only streaming right now to YouTube. And that's actually another topic I wanted to get into. I didn't really want to get into it tonight, but I am kind of juggling the idea of sticking just with YouTube versus doing Twitch and YouTube, mostly for the reason that just happened right there. And I won't know until I play back the stream, but it looked like it dropped the stream for a few seconds. So I'm really trying to keep the stream healthy. And I also want to make sure that we don't have a lot of hiccups with it getting laggy, or, the audio gets choppy. So I may just stick with just doing YouTube. But that'll be I'll put that out there on Twitter after the stream and after I put some more thought into it. But right now, I'm just on YouTube because the Twitch stream, like I said, was acting very weird right there. Okay. So, sorry for the technical difficulties. So, yeah, anyways, that was about it. I wanted to cover the topic. So, we'll be looking at, like I said, Python libraries to interact and configure Cisco IOS XE devices. That's what we'll be looking at tonight. And so, you might be asking, okay, well, it isn't a broad topic, but like, how do you know to use these, the Scrapli, specifically the Scrapli library, right? So lucky for all of us, let me see, open up my bookmarks bar real quickly. Software and equipment list. Just hide that again. Okay. Okay. So this, and I've gone over this before. So the DevNet team did a really good job when they released the certification. They released the exam topics, and they also released this equipment and software list. So as you guys, as everyone kind of knows, DevNet is all about, networking, but also, more times than not about the software side and using software and developing software. So I think this was crucial that they released this, the type of for example, the virtual machine, the operating system on the virtual machine, the different virtual devices you'll be interacting with. So, this list is crucial. But scrolling down to the bottom, so this is all good information. I'm not skipping it because it's junk, because it's actually really good information. I still actually need to set up my Ubuntu VM so that way with all these tools. But at the bottom here, you'll notice these two files, and one's a requirements.txt file. And what this is, basically, if you're not familiar, this actually will provide a list of libraries and Python packages that will be used in your dev environment. So basically, these are all the libraries that we'll get documentation about and also be able to use on the test. And you'll notice down towards the bottom here that Scrapli is here, and I can't highlight, but let me flip over to VS Code. You'll notice, so I downloaded this requirements.txt file, and you'll notice Scrapli's right here. So what that tells me is it's an option, right? There may not be an exact question that says use Scrapli and connect to a device and configure it, but it's in the requirements file, which means it's installed on the VM, the test VM, in the testing environment. Whereas there's other libraries not here, but I mean Scrapli's here. NetMiko is also here, right? Paramiko, which I mean NetMiko is is forked from pexpect, which we'll get into these libraries if you're unsure, because I've already done some learning examples, and we'll get into that. So anyways, that's why we're looking at Scrapli specifically tonight. You'll see PyTS is here as well. That's our favorite. Anyways, so if you want to check this out, the The link is on the DevNet Expert on developercisco.com, the DevNet Expert site. They have a equipment software list, and I plan to review this a lot, especially if I don't think anything would change, but I obviously want to make sure that I'm kept up to date. But they do make a disclaimer that says, hey, like there may be newer versions installed on the VM or in the testing environment, but you won't need to know any of the new features. So like let's say Postman 9's right here. If Postman 10 comes out with some brand new feature, you won't need to know what that feature is or anything about it. So, but yeah, so pretty neat. I'm really happy that they provided this. All right. So before we jump into actually doing code, I also wanted to just talk about, I created a GitHub repository specifically for taking notes for the DevNet Expert. So any code we write, any notes that we take, I'll be putting onto this repository. So you'll see here, I have some comment, and then the initial commit was made day 1, which I started November 1st. And, this README just kind of explains a little bit about like what we're doing. I'll update it once I have an exam date. Once registration's open and I actually have it booked, I will I'll put that in the README. And then lastly, I have a book list, right? So the book list is this isn't official, but you'll notice that I have a couple pretty good authors and books on this list. So Eric, I actually just had recorded a podcast with him. He wrote a book called Mastering Python Networking. I'm about 100 pages into it right now. Very good book. Very good for a beginner that needs to know a little bit about networking and a little bit Python. I would say, especially the beginning chapters, it's obviously always a good refresher for anyone, but I think it would be very valuable to someone like, let's say, coming off a CCNA that has a little bit of, has that networking foundation, but, just needs a quick refresher with the networking and then wants to learn about Python and automation. So I'm reading that book first, and this is kind of in a pecking order. So this is, first on the list. So once I'm done reading this, I'm then going to jump to Network Programmability and Automation Fundamentals. It's a Cisco Press book, and this is it's a big boy. It's like 1,200 pages. So not to say that I'm going to read it in its entirety, but I'm sure there will be some sections that I feel comfortable with, and I may skip a page here and there. But for the most part, I'll be reading that straight through as well. This I feel like will have a lot of. I'll be actually writing hand notes for this as well, because I just want to make sure I don't miss anything. Let me think. Yeah, so that's that book. And by the way, if you download the exam topics, so you see this download now, you download an Excel sheet which actually has a list of resources, and this book is on that list of resources. This book and then the next book here is also on it, and it's called Network Programmability with Yang, Structure of Network Automation with Yang, NetConf, RESTConf, GNMI. So this is going to be pretty neat, and it's by Benoit Claus. I'm probably fudging that name, and then Joe Clark. And I know Joe Clark, actually, I've just watched the what is it called? The DevNet Snack Minute. It just got released today on YouTube, and he speaks a little bit about the DevNet Expert exam. And so, this book specifically, I think, will really help me out, because Yang, if for those that don't know, Yang is a data modeling language, and it's kind of the future. I mean, I think it will be the future. Adoption is slowly coming around, but Yang is basically, it provides kind of a schema for a ways to interact with the device. So instead of SSH to a device, running a show command, and then putting it through a parser like we're doing today. Yang allows you to connect to a device either via netconf, using an API, REST API, or using like RESTconf, and it provides like a predefined schema, and it could be based on the different iOS version, software version. The different models or modules can depend, but Yang is going to be super important, especially for the expert lab. So I'm kind of excited to read that book. And this second book here, Network Programmability and Automation Fundamentals, does provide I did kind of skim over the chapter about Yang and Yang modules and everything like that. So, and it seemed like it had a pretty good base, so that's why I'm reading that one first, and then diving into hopefully a little more detail in this book. And then lastly, you saw on the exam outline here about containers. Well, containers, and I'll bundle security in there as well, because honestly, if you don't have security in mind, you're already off on the wrong foot. So, but the container section specifically calls out Docker and Kubernetes, and that's kind of like the meat and potatoes of this section is actually building those Docker compose files, deploying Kubernetes clusters, and then it actually kind of ties in with section 1, where we're deploying and figuring out the design of an application. And the design, obviously, performance around scalability, latency, high availability, resiliency. Like, if you don't know about Kubernetes or Docker containers and how to keep certain replica sets up and there's a certain number of containers online, then obviously you'll have struggles with the design section as well. So I figured, I got this book called Kubernetes Up and Running, Dive into the Future of Infrastructure, and it's by a host of different authors. I just got this one today, actually. I just got it shipped, and it seems pretty neat. I reviewed the table of contents, and I'll definitely learn a little bit from it, because I know with the DevCore exam, the written version the written portion of the DevNet Expert and DevNet Professional, that one, it required you to know a little bit about Kubernetes and just setting it up. But obviously, being all multiple choice, you didn't actually have to set it up. I did in my practice, but like not on the test. So this will be an interesting book. So anyways, I'll check those off as I finish them, and coincide with reading them, I'll be labbing, as I'll be doing on stream today and then also in the future. So okay, so I think that's about it. I just wanted to catch everyone up on how this stream will be structured, kind of what we'll be doing moving forward. So all right, so let's start with Scrapli, and I may be pronouncing it wrong, so I apologize, but for the stream, I'll be calling it Scrapli. So what is Scrapli? So actually, let's go to, I meant to just keep the GitHub link open. So you'll see, I'm just going to read the about section. It's fast, flexible, has sync and async functionality for getting data off network devices. So think of it as like an alternative with NetMiko, if you're familiar with that. So sending commands, receiving commands back. Now the biggest kind of benefit to Scrapli is its speed. So that's one of the biggest things about Scrapli is it kind of that's its main goal, is to be the fastest. Hey Clay, appreciate it. Thanks Clay. I see Clay says you're pronouncing it correctly. Okay. It's because the only reason I'm kind of questioning myself was because it said its name is like, I always look at it as Scrape CLI, but so anyways, yeah, we're kind of right here. Scrapli, Scrape CLI. That's kind of where the name came from. So anyways, so it uses SSH2 as its transport, and so it tries to use the native SSH on the device or on your server. So it tries not to create like a wrapper or any sort of abstraction layer sitting on top of your just the native SSH protocol on your machine. So that's where it gets its speed from. You'll see, it's pluggable, and one of the things we hopefully will get to tonight is seeing how we can plug it into a network automation framework called Nornir. Now, Nornir, I didn't see it on the requirements TXT file I just showed you earlier, but it's very popular. Think of it as a more flexible, more Pythonic version of, I don't want to relate it to Ansible, but if you've used Ansible, where it kind of, it's a platform, it's a true framework, versus like this, I would consider a library because it has one purpose of just getting data, whereas Nornir, you can extend it beyond. And so I much prefer it versus Ansible, but just wanted to kind of put it out there as my like basic definition for Nornir. Yep, uses netconf. Like you see here, there's a couple different plugins that it offers. So very flexible library, very easy to use. And we'll actually write a script relative to this tonight and kind of just go from there. So, but anyways, this is on the test. And like I said, going back to the requirements, we can go to, you see here, Scrapli, and then all these different async SSH. So that's for your async functionality. Genie, which is, your parsers. Paramiko, which actually is another SSH library. And so not a parser, but actual SSH library. TextFSM is also a parser library. And then TTP is actually, I guess you could call it its own parser library, because it allows you to create templates to, let me just pull it up. Let's see, Python, TTP. And I had hold on. I actually had a really good example. Dang. Let me see. Template text parser, yeah. I forgot what TTP actually stood for, but let me go to my GitHub real quick. So there's a guy, Tony, and I've starred his, let me see, your stars. I've starred his library before with TTP. Here it is. Yeah. So yeah, it's a TTP template for parsing show run for an iOS XE device. And then here's the example. So you'll see, yeah, it basically takes a show run information and parses it out to something that, Python, obviously, like in Python, you could look at this and say, okay, well, it's, you could parse it out as a dictionary, right? And you see that all the interfaces, and it kind of goes on and on. But anyways, just wanted to kind of circle back with all the different libraries that are kind of included. So, all right. So let's jump into writing some code. Let me quickly, we'll call this one Scrapli Learning. All right, so, and real quickly, this is the Eve topology we'll be actually looking at tonight. Very basic. It's just a router and a switch. And I actually already had SSH. I already had putty sessions with them. Let me see here. So pretty basic. I just have a couple sub interfaces, and then kind of the uplink interface into my LAN. I didn't really mention, I don't think I talked too much about it last time, but I recently got a used Dell R620 server, and I forget how many, like 32 vCPUs and 128 gigs of RAM. bunch of overkill, right? But I got it mostly for this DevNet Expert kind of studying, because I wanted to get off of Google Cloud, because I wanted to be able just to power up the server, power up EvenG, and get it going. So that's where I'm hosting. The server's actually like underneath my desk, so luckily it's not too loud and you guys can't hear it on the stream, but it is on, and that's what's hosting my EvenG environment. So yeah, we'll be taking a look at R1 and then this stream switch right here. These are both running. I will say I'm not following the exam topics to a T, because it does say iOS XE devices, but I'm only using my iOS V devices for this specific example. Like I said, I think the iOS XE specific, which are, CSRs, which I actually do have a couple CSRs. Let me just pull it up, make sure I have it. Okay, no, I don't. I thought for sure I uploaded a CSR with 17.3.3 code on it, but I stand corrected. So I'll have to actually add that as well. Actually, no, I didn't add a CSR, because on the equipment list, it asks for a Catalyst 8000V, which is basically their new routers. So I could use a CSR probably running 17.5, but all right, I digress from that. So anyways, the iOS XE, though, the point of that, I believe, is so that way you could use RESTconf and netconf to interact and use, like I talked about the Yang data models. And we're not focusing on that tonight, so I figure iOS V images are perfectly fine for this demo. Okay, so like I said, we're all learning here. And so I actually planned on, I have created some scripts using the Scrapli library before, but honestly, I'm going to start from square one and kind of just walk through it. And if I hiccup on the way, or if anyone has questions that's watching the stream, please put it in the chat and I'll try to answer to the best of my ability. All right, so we've already installed the library. Now we want to connect to the device and then run a command. So one of the things here is, I know they use drivers, and he uses a couple different, he has a couple different drivers. And basically what the drivers are for is what handles like think of it as, all the different prompts and the ways to interact with these devices. And that's what the drivers help allow us to do, is it basically builds on top of, so let me see if I could pull up the sync driver. This is the base driver. Okay, so Cisco iOS XE driver. Yeah, okay, so here are a couple of the different Scrapli drivers, and you'll notice that there's a base driver, and that's mostly because there's a lot of similarities between the different network operating systems, but for the differences, that's handled at this specific driver level. So like if there's a difference between iOS XR and NXOS, which I can imagine there are plenty, those differences would be put into those different drivers. So I don't see one specifically for iOS, because like I said, we are dealing with an iOS device versus iOS XE. And just to prove to you, let's see, 15.6 right here. Jeez, 15.6. So we'll use the iOS XE driver. Oh, actually, before we get started, let me turn on some music. I meant to do this last time, just so that way it's not too boring. I know it's so much fun just looking at me figuring out Scrapli, but oh, and this is a non-copyright playlist, so you're gonna get a bunch of different stuff. Just a heads up. All right, so let's see here. Where was my example? All right, let's go back to the user guide. All right, so let's see. You basically import a driver, which makes sense, like I just talked about. And then we create a my device object, or I'm sorry, a dictionary called my device, right? And then we feed it into the driver. Pretty straightforward. So I'm not gonna put more work on myself than needed. So I'm just gonna go ahead and plug this in here, right? And then, so we'll do 192.168. Actually, let me turn this down just a little bit, because I don't need to blast in my ear. I just need a little background music. All right. So 192, 168, 170, 150 is my router. So we'll just call this one R1. No, we'll stick with router 1. Username, Dan. It's very secure, so Cisco 123. Router 1. So basically what we're doing here is we created a dictionary that defines our device, right? That has, you know, our host, which is our IP address, the username, password to log in, and then this auth strict key, which basically says, you know, don't check the host key, right? We don't have it in our list, in our known host file, basically. And you might be like, okay, why do we create a dictionary and then feed it into this iOS XE driver? And what are these two kind of asterisks? So what that does is unpacks the dictionary. So another way of doing this, or think of it as, iOS XE driver has these different arguments that you feed into it, right? Which are the keys of the dictionary. So instead of feeding them in individually, like saying host equals this 192.168, or the username equals Dan, we created a dictionary and then we're feeding it in. And this actually helps us if we wanted to use this. Let's say we want to use router 1 somewhere else. We can pass it in to any other function. So it's actually it's better to do it this way versus, you know, passing in a bunch of different arguments. So all right, so then what do we do? So we just call that driver, like we say, okay, this is basically how to connect to router 1. We just call it con, we open the connection, we send the command show run, and we print the response dot result. So let's just see if it works. So we'll go to scripts. Oops. Can't spell anything. So we're already in our virtual environment. And so we'll just do Scrapli learning. Maybe. Oh, I didn't save any of that. Let's try that again. Encounter end of file typically means the device closed the connection. All right. Let's see. I wouldn't think it would be related to input error. Let me make sure. Yeah. Let me just make sure I can SSH from my machine. Let's see. Do new session 2.168.7.150. Interesting. Oh, you know what? Try the switch, just out of curiosity. I bet I don't have SSH configured on that device. There's a good chance. But let me see this one, because this one. I bet I don't have SSH on that device. Alright. So that one works. The router, for some reason, I don't have SSH configured. I'll figure that one out later. So we'll just keep it router 1. We'll see what happens. No matching key. Yeah, but that's why I set it to false. More examples. We do check out this example. Interesting. Let's see. Let's do this. My device will feed my device in. 192.168. Makes sense that because I didn't test any of this before the stream, that I'd struggle as soon as I tried it. All right. So this actually uses a Genie parser. We'll figure out. No matching key exchange. Yeah, that's the problem. I don't need. Actually. I have an idea. Oh, I got what you mean. Thanks, Clay. You have no matching key exchange protocols. Shoot. Let's see if I can SSH, see if it, yeah, it's the same thing. I've seen that before, man. That stinks. See if I can do, let me see if I can get router 1 set up. I'm trying to think, let me think of what I've seen that whenever I have older new SSH client. Yeah, new SSH client OS, old SSH server on device, they cannot negotiate. Yeah. I've had that happen before too, man. That stinks. All right, so let's see. I'm trying to think of what I have missing. So I have the domain name. I think the only thing I have here, crypto. I think I got to generate just the SSH key. Let's see, RSA. Just gonna do 2048. I feel like I did 2048 in the last one as well. I think that's it. I feel like IP 199 SSH. I feel like I'm always just patching this together. Let's see. Let me try the router. Let me see if I can actually hit this. Oops. 192.168.7.150. Yeah, I don't have something else configured on this device. I'm trying to figure out what it is. See, I mean, it always comes back, man. It always comes back to networking. It's the Cipher suites for the key exchange, not the key length. Looking for the docs and how to set that. Okay, got it. Yeah, so I was that's where I was kind of worried about not having a long enough. So my thought with that was the key length, but yeah, that makes sense though. But I gotta still figure out why I can't connect to this guy. Let's see. Oh. Dude, what? So transport import input none. Why is that default, man? Transport, or I'm sorry. Line VTY. I'll just open up all 15. Transport input SSH. I'll save that. And let me try to just get to this. I'll try to get this working real quick. All right. Wonder if this, because that was an iOS V, the switch image. I think the router one's a little newer, but let me just see. Maybe not. If I get the same error message. Man, this would be a great start to my my studies, wouldn't it? Oops. Yeah, dang. Yeah, because the offer. No matching key exchange. Yeah, let me go to, I think you put in the chat, yeah, the sshconfig. Yeah, I thought, that's weird. You know what's crazy? I just realized this. So, because I literally had this running in the last stream. I had everything working, but I recently, I had to blow away my 1804 WSL image, and now I'm running 2004. I wonder if they removed some of the Cipher suites. Oh my gosh, man. Let me just see if there's an SSH. Okay, so we're in the right direction here. There's nothing even in the directory. You know what? Add Cipher. Oops. Kex algorithms. These are just open SSL. This is just the manual for it. Supported Cipher that is consistent with the level. I don't think. Wonder if this has a list. Following is a list of all permitted Cipher strings and their meanings. So let's see. This is for 1804. I'm just curious at this point. This is 1804, which is the WSL image I was running. Diffie, Hellman, Exchange, SHA-1. Yeah, SHA-1's definitely a little old. Group 14, SHA-1. Yeah, SHA-1. Let's see if, and then I'll take a look at what you put in there, Clay, about the Kex algorithms. SHA-1's there too as well. Yeah, so that's what I was looking at. So the state of the, which ones the router supported. Yeah, so the routers support Diffie-Hellman, SHA-1. It is the upgrade. I've been through this on my network. Dude, of course. But yeah, so SHA-1, group 14. That's the Diffie-Hellman group. Group 1, SHA-1. So it's just... Well, hey, I mean, I got to get used to it, I guess, because we'll be using a 2004 image on the lab for the expert. So shoot, I guess how can we add Cipher suites? Like you mentioned, Kex algorithm. Yeah, the key exchange key specifies the available. Okay, so Kex algorithm. Is it a... No. Command Kex not found, but there are 19 similar ones. I wasn't sure whether it was a command you could put to find is Kex. All right, let's see. If Kex algorithm is not configured explicitly in SSH config, what's the default? Open SSH. Okay, this is kind of what I need. First for supported by the client. Query SSH for supported. I'm just wondering if this will work with. Okay. So how do we get... So I'm in the router now. Let's say exit. Now the only question is, how do we force Scrapli to use a different algorithm? Let's see. Interesting. Let's see. Okay, hold on. Using SSH config file. Example demonstrate handling connection settings via SSH config. So SSH config file to true, make Scrapli check in for a file named config or SSH config. Standard open SSH name convention. You can also just pass a path to a file. Okay. Yep. Yeah, Clay, it looks like you mentioned you believe Scrapli respects SSH config. Yeah, so it looks like it does. You just have to pass an extra parameter. Except I'm not going to call mine config. I just got to create it now. Let's see. So let's do a quick, let me do this first though. Let me just throw that in there and we'll call it just config. Now the real question is, let me do host. Okay, so maybe add this to the config file. All right, I will do that. Let me just do open up Nano real quick. I think I just need a. I don't think it has an extension. Yep. All right, let's try it now. Oh, the chat messed up the formatting a bit. Okay. Shoot. Let me open that back up then. Let me do creating sshconfig file. Let me just, I'm just going to double check the format because I feel like, because I just took it right from the chat. I just need the config section, not the. Let's see. Jeez, come on, man. Host. Okay. Host star. All right. So each key evaluated, then the rest. Got it. Got it. Got it. Cool. Let's see. Oops. Code. DevNet Expert. Python. Scrapli. Yep. If it requires a password to increase privilege. Okay. We're making it. We're making it. I feel it. I do have an enable password, and that's just my fault for being lazy. And I bet you won't guess what it is. Boom. All right, let's try it again. All right, we did it. We did it. Feel like Dora right now. We did it. Clay, you're the man. I appreciate it. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for helping me out there. So we learned a valuable lesson. The iOS V images. There's a reason that they say iOS XE. But no, I'm just messing. Because these iOS V images are actually, they are on the test. They're on the list of equipment. So, but as you can see, we got the show run information. I know here in the example it says it's going to use a Genie parser. There's no Genie parser for show run, which you can see down here. It's just an empty list return, which that's what those brackets mean. But you see show runs here, and it's exactly from it's directly off the device. And I mean, let's see. I won't go through and actually add in like a time to see how long it takes, but like it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 5 seconds. And on top of it, you have to think. We also asked it to try to parse it using Genie, so there's a little time in there to find like the right parser, and then if there is, actually parsing it. But yeah, I think that's pretty awesome. So safely less than 10 seconds, but I would say even less than 5 seconds, we're able to collect the show run information from our device. And that is just human readable, right? That's not even like parsed output. Let's do something even better. Let's do show version. Boom. That was definitely quicker. I mean, I won't go through, and that was 3 seconds. Could you comment it out? Could you comment it out, Matt? What do you mean comment it out? What piece? Oh, were you referring to the print statement for the Genie parsed output? I could do that. Now, if I did that, just to show you or explain it, the only thing that wouldn't show up the Genie parser. Yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, let's just do it. Who cares? Let's see how quickly it runs. Boom. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hey, I would say a solid 5 seconds, under 5 seconds. And you have the show run information. And remember, I mean, these are virtual devices. There might be a bottleneck in the virtual device itself. So I wouldn't say all that time spent right there was the actual library. You have to think, this library is reaching out, collecting that information, storing it in the buffer, and then printing it out. So, and there's the bottlenecks of, I'm sure you've connected to a device using PuTTY or your SSH client and run show run, and it kind of sits and the pagination that happens where you have to click on more or enter the space bar. So there was that happening as well. So that was pretty awesome, right? So let's do the opposite though. So instead of printing the results out, just human readable results, let's do we'll do show version again, just because it was easy to kind of explain. And we'll actually import pretty print, or from print. I don't know if this is I don't think this is standard. There's a chance that this might fail, just a heads up. But what pretty print does, it'll actually structure the output for us to make it more readable to us, but it's going to be kind of a JSON output, I guess you could call it, but kind of you'll see. I'm gonna quit talking. I don't know if pretty print, oh, it does work. Okay. I was worried about, so pprint is actually, it stands for pretty print. And what it allows you to do is, let me see if I've found, okay, it's already gone. But what it does is it takes that structured output, and when I say structured, basically computer readable data, and it quote unquote pretty prints it out for you, so that way it's more readable. Otherwise, this would just be one continuous blob. And you may have caught it earlier, but you can see here we're just doing show version, and you see version and then all the information, right? So let's just quickly take a, what the heck? Let's minimize that. All right. All right, so yeah, we have the version chassis. So this is iOS V, but like this could be 9400, 9410, 9300, 3850. I mean, it could be whatever, right? Tells you the serial number, the host name, the image, last reload reason, main mem. I mean, it tells you all this great information. There we go. And then down here, you can parse out like the uptime, the version. That's a very popular one, right? Because a lot of people are like, let me try to get every single iOS version out on my network, right? You could literally run, I mean, this is a super spaced out and very verbose example, but less than 25 lines of code, right? I can do this across one device. This is super easy to replicate, right? You could easily feed in other IP addresses, other devices into this and parse through all of its output. So, yeah, and you could easily say, okay, so we parse the output, and so let's just add something real quick. Hey, Angel, I see you in the chat. How you doing? Haven't talked to you in a while. All right, so what we'll do is just comment that piece out now, and we'll say instead of printing out all of this, let's say going with our example, we're like, okay, let's get the version, right? So we could say version equals, actually, yeah, I was freezing up for a sec. Parse output. So what we're doing now is saying, okay, and just to make it a little more verbose, we're storing this output, this structured output, in a variable called device version. So now if we're like, okay, we need to get the version out of it, the iOS version, all we would do is just parse through it like you would a normal Python dictionary. So you would say device version, and we put the square brackets and call on, okay, how do we dig into that? So obviously, like, the main key here is version. And then after this version, we're now into this level, right? From this curly brace down to this curly brace. So we just need to pull out the version again. So we'll just pull out version again. And we'll print all of this. We won't even assign it to a variable. We'll just print. All right. So yeah, so we'll print version, and basically that says what value to print, and you'll see it should be 1561T. So we'll run it again. Just like that. We got it. Just like that. I mean, think about that. That was pretty, besides the SSH issues and this, you know, the not matching Cipher suites, and I appreciate you, Clay. Thanks for, I'm really glad you're here, you know, to kind of help me through that. I've ran into the issue in the past, and it just stinks. Yeah, Matt, yeah, it's awesome. I think it's very neat that even if you have a very basic knowledge with Python, there's libraries like Scrapli out there that allow you just to run any command and parse any information you want. So, I mean, think about it. Instead of printing this, we could say store this value in memory, right? We could assign it to a variable, and then we could compare it. We could take that value stored in a database. And then from there, you can create a web front end using Flask or another web framework and put this in a table, right? So there's a ton of different ways you can use this information, but just like that, we were able to gather. What we did was we gathered it, we parsed it, and then we parsed the information into structured data, and then we parsed out the exact value we wanted. So think about it. If we wanted to, let's say, get the operating system, because obviously this could be iOS, iOS XE, iOS XR. It's just simple as this. We change that key because now instead of being from version down to version, we're at version OS. So we'll run this again. iOS, right? So pretty neat stuff. I think it's pretty neat. And you could do, and the best part about this is your imagination can kind of go free, like wild now, because this is just doing show version. So, you know, as an example, let me do one other real quick. Let me see if I have any of the routing table. Okay, I have a pretty basic routing table. I just have a static default and then some, learn and connected routes. So this is pretty easy to read. So you could actually take this and you could parse it. If there's a parser available, and you could just look up in the Genie documentation if there's a parser, but I'm almost certain. Show IP route, and let's see. So we have the show or the device version. I'm just going to comment this out and comment this out and then uncomment this. And and we'll just run it. So we're just going to pretty print. What this will do is it should print out all the routes in the format that the, and this looks real messy, but let me, well, I'm not going to copy it. Yeah, so this is only a router with 3 routes in it. So I think it's actually almost a perfect example. And so you'll see, what VRF we're in. So obviously, it's just out of the box. And so we don't have it really any sort of advanced configuration on it. So it's just using the default VRF. The address family is IPv4. We don't have an IPv6, we don't have IPv6 enabled, or we don't have any routes as well. So we don't have to worry about that. But if we did, the way we would traverse this is to say address family, and then imagine down here it would say IPv6 routes, and then go on from there. But you'll see the subnet that, the route, whether it's active, the next hop, the outgoing interface, the source. I think this is pretty neat. It tells you the source protocol and then the source protocol code. So you could literally say parse my routes and say I only want to find where the source protocol is BGP, and you literally can print out all the routes for just your BGP routes, and then from there you can manipulate however you want, because these are strings, but you can do regex. Python kind of opens up the world to you, so you can sort them, you can do whatever you want. And then PyATS, I won't go into it now, but PyATS has that DQ module I've mentioned before, the dictionary query module, which allows you to more easily go into and dig in these dictionaries. So instead of what we did here was dive into version and OS, think about if we wanted to get to source protocol, we would have to do VRF default, address family, IPv4, routes. We'd have to know this route. And then after we get into that route, then we would say source protocol, and then we would see that it's just a connected route. So instead of going into that, the DQ module in the Genie, I'm sorry, I said PyATS, the Genie library is so much more helpful and helps you kind of narrow down the information you're looking for. Matt says, definitely, I am currently comparing VLANs on interfaces to see if there are any diffs on interfaces. Literally 1,000 VLANs I have to compare. Ooh. Wow. Okay. Let me see. I'm just trying to think if I can. Obviously, I can't help you to the scale of 1,000 VLANs, but I do have a switch that does have VLANs. Let me see. Let me see what I can whip up here. And let's see. And let me make sure I'm understanding your question right. Oh, maybe I don't. Whatever. Can I do multiple VLANs? I'm pretty sure. I haven't done this in a very long time. Name test VLAN. Can't modify the other names of multiple VLANs, but should have created 10 VLANs for us. Perfect. Okay. I'm sorry. I just had a hic. I have not configured that, especially multiple VLANs in a long time. Okay, so we have 10 VLANs here. Let's see what our parse data looks like. And Matt, I'm just going off of, I'm really glad you actually kind of brought up a use case, so that way I can kind of show you live what maybe I would look at, or maybe what we could do with, using a little bit of automation. So I'm not connecting my router anymore. Still same credentials. Let's do show VLAN. So I know that there's a parser, a Genie parser for show VLAN. And so let's print out what that looks like. Okay. So as you just saw, I configured, where'd it go? I configured 10 VLANs, VLANs 10 through 20. So let's see what we got. Okay, so, and I read your question again, Matt, and I'm gonna get to it because I see that you're comparing VLANs on interfaces to see if there are any differences on interfaces. Okay, so let's look at the interfaces next. Obviously, I don't have 1,000 VLANs, and I don't have like I have 8 ports, mostly because this is a virtual switch. But let's take a look at that. Let's see if maybe what we'll do is switch port access VLAN 10, and I know I could use automation to configure this as well. Could you see if you trunk 1 through 10 on one and 5 through 20 on another, can get a, and on another, can you get a different between the two? I can sure try. Switch port, and let me actually just say switch port. VLAN 10, switch port mode. I think I can do. Yeah, I have to set the encapsulation. I thought so. Trunk encap .1q. Okay. Switch port. Nope. Trunk VLAN. Allowed VLAN. Oh man, dude, it's so funny because I see so many people on Twitter that will meme this command so much because they're either they're adding VLANs, but of course, yeah, add VLANs. I don't really need. Actually, let me do accept. I've never used accept, to be honest. VLAN IDs of disallowed. So you wanted 1 through 10 on one. So what we'll do is say 11 through 20 on this one. Let's see what we got here in trunk. That should have worked. Oh, that's not what we're looking for. I didn't have all those VLANs. Oh, please don't tell me it created those VLANs. Okay. Alright, hold on, I'm sorry. Let's take this out. I'm just gonna say no and take it out. Allowed VLAN. We'll say 1 through 10. 1 through 10. Cool. I'm confident that one worked. G02. Angel says virtual Nexus switches can have up to 128 ports. Yes. But one, this isn't a Nexus switch, and two, I don't know how much horsepower I need for that. I'm sure I might be able to get close to, I don't know, 128 ports, man. That would be tough. But this is an iOS V device, just an iOS device. All right, so I'm still rocking your example, Matt. Just give me a second. Switch port, trunk, allowed VLAN 5 through 20. So let me just check my end status. Wait, I think I have to unassign. Okay. And G. Oh shoot. Wonder how it let me. Switch port. Trunk encap.1q. Maybe I have to, hold on. And G2, no shot. Oh, you know what? Maybe because I don't have any connected to them. Okay. That's so weird. I feel like show interface trunk should feel like show interface trunk. I don't need that actual. Yeah, it says it just says VLAN 1 through 10. Okay, so let me do this. Just because I don't want to spend too much time on it. Let me just do, because I'm pretty sure the access VLANs will work. Yeah, the pit ports aren't up physically. Yeah, that's kind of the problem. Is I don't have anything. Like, I don't want to spin up 2 more switches or devices to go. Well, I mean, I guess I could do. So I don't think it'll work. Let me try. See, the only thing is I have to shut down the device to connect in EvenG. So it's not going to work there. Access will be fine. Yeah, okay. So we'll just do NG4. Jeez. Maybe loopbacks. All right, let's see if this will work first. Oh my gosh. Oh, duh, I'm an idiot. 1 0. Nope. Now I'm just going too fast. Switch port, access, VLAN, 20. I'm just trying to see if I can find. Okay, perfect. This will work. 0 1 and 0 2 will not, because yeah, like you said, I don't have anything connected to it right now. I know it says connected, but that's just the default behavior of the virtual device. So you could look at, and the reason I keep doing show interface status is because I know there's a parser available for it. And let me just run it real quick. Show interface status. Oh, let me just quickly run show VLAN again, because right here we only had VLAN 10. And actually, okay, this will be kind of neat for you. And there's multiple, so I guess I'll preface with there's multiple ways to solve your problem. So you can look at it from a config perspective, or you can do it from a looking at it from like the operational state. So like in our case, we're running show commands that will check the operational state, right? It'll tell you what VLANs are active, whether they're active, and what ports they're assigned to, without really looking at the configuration, if that makes sense. So let's see. So we'll do Scrapli learning again. We'll just run the command. And here you go. So you'll see what's pretty neat here is, you have all the VLANs, right? The top key is VLANs, and then you have the VLAN number. So 1, 10, and then the 1000s are right next to 10 because of, it just kind of goes in, I guess you can say it's not really numerical order, but it's doing a sort to where it sees, okay, 10, 1002, 1003, and then it jumps to 2, and then it jumps to 11. So you'll see like 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and then all the way up to 20, right? The neat part is if you were looking for specific, if you knew how many ports needed to be in like, let's say you had a switch and you knew that, a 48 port switch, and you had 24 ports configured for one VLAN and 24 ports for another, or let's say you had them trunked, kind of like what you were asking about, you could actually look at the number of interfaces assigned to a specific VLAN. So in our case, we could say, let me just show you. So we'll say VLANs. I'll uncomment it so you can read it. And so what this does is we'll say, all right, we captured this output in this VLANs variable, and then what we'll do is print VLANs, and then let's say we want VLAN number 10, right? Because we know that one interface is in VLAN 10. And so, we go down to VLAN 10 and we say, okay, well then what other values do we want? We'll want interfaces, right? Because we want to know what interfaces are in VLAN 10 for this on this specific device. And I did a pretty print, but it's not really necessary. So let's just see. And we should only get one interface. Let's see. Maybe that's a number. Hold on. The error was there's a key error. Oh, actually, never mind. I think I know the issue. I think, unless it works. Then there was never an issue. Oh, yeah. So I forgot this top level key. So I assigned it to a variable called VLANs, but I didn't actually go into the VLANs dictionary, which is the top level dictionary. So I actually got to put it right here. So I got to say VLANs, right? So now we're at VLANs, the VLAN number we're interested in, VLAN 10, and then the list, and then interfaces, which, like I said, is the list of interfaces. And there's a timeout because, well, I didn't have. Oh shoot! Now I'm forgetting a square, one of my brackets. Let's try again. So now it should just print out a interface name in a Python list at the very bottom. Just to cut out any confusion, it will only print out this last item there. And remember, these issue or the speed of this can depend on a few different things. It can depend on, in this case, I know it's my virtual iOS device that's causing the issue. Yeah, like here, there's a timeout. There's most likely a timeout because of a connection to the device. Like the device is just not responding. So let me try it again. Real quickly. Yeah, see? So like it took less than 10 seconds that time, right? So so yeah, now you have a list, a Python list. If you don't know the difference between like lists, dictionaries, I've kind of been going back and forth with those words tonight. That'll be a kind of a good point to, that would be something you want to teach yourself about Python. It's one of the basics you'll learn, after assigning variables and some of the comparisons you can run. Python lists and dictionaries are pretty much the key to network automation and helping you parse through the data that you get back from the network device. So if you wanted just the particular value, since it's a Python list, you can use the index. So technically you could put a 0 at the end because every list, the index starts at 0 and not 1. So now instead of having the braces around it, it'll just be the name of the interface. See? And that's only because there was one device in the list, or I'm sorry, one interface in the list. But if you had multiple interfaces in the list, it would print out every interface. So yeah, hey Matt, yeah, I appreciate the example, the use case on live stream. So that was it was really cool of you to bring it up. It was really cool that it worked for me. But I really appreciate you bringing it up. Yeah, lists and dictionaries can be confusing and how to call the values. So yeah, lists it's kind of like, this kind of has a mixture of both in it. So VLANs, printing out this list, or I'm sorry, I hate screwing those words up. So like here, this obviously is a dictionary. The braces, especially when you're first starting, pay attention to the braces. You have the braces here that is the dictionary, the curly braces, and then the square braces signify a list. The curly braces, the dictionary, you can actually reference the name within the value. Okay, so we did here VLANs and then 10, and I put the quotes around 10 because that's actually a string, not a number. So, the string data type. and then we went to interfaces. And then the 0 is actually a reference to the index, which you would do in a list. So I couldn't say I want gigabit Ethernet 0/3. I would actually have to reference the index within the list. So that's, hopefully I explained that well. But that's kind of just a breakdown between the lists and the dictionaries. Angel said, when you finish this section, and sorry to ask a tough question, any premium subscription recommended for DevNet Pro expert level as a complement? What's your opinion? So good question. I am done the section. I actually just took a look at the time. It's 9:30, so I'm going to be wrapping it up here. Yeah, you're welcome, Matt. I thank you. Like I said, thank you again for kind of the live use case. And for anyone watching, whether it's, you're in stream right now or you're watching the video on demand on YouTube, if you have any use cases that you want to go over kind of as we go through and progress through these studies, just let me know. You can message me on Twitter. You can just send me a message, publicly or DM. It's totally up to you. So I like getting a use case because that way I don't have to kind of make up something that may or may not be relevant to you. But Angel, your question about premium subscription recommended for DevNet Pro expert level as a complement. So I can tell you that Nick Russo has some pretty good content on Pluralsight. Now it's not specifically set, like the title of the course may be DevNet Professional or expert level, but he has very good network automation videos. They're to the point and they're very good examples. That's all I got to say. He provides data references. So that's one option. And that is actually, premium, you said premium subscription. I would say the quality is premium, but I would say it's relatively cheap to others. It's about $30 a month, at least whenever I was subscribed. It was $30 a month for Pluralsight. The other training material that I would recommend, and that actually helped me pass the DevCore exam, is the Cisco Learning. So Cisco actually has a paid on-demand learning courses, and the DevCore one really helps me out a lot. I would say that's one of the, besides referencing white papers and doing my own research, that was one of the big ones. Yeah, Clay. Clay says, I'd say Nick Russo's content is the best out there. Yeah, I mean, hands down, he goes over everything to a certain degree and then leaves it just open-ended enough to where, you kind of have to, you can watch his videos, but you're not going to learn the content until you actually do it. And I really like that he keeps the video content relative. I would say all of his videos are pretty much under 10 minutes and definitely under 15 minutes for sure. So his content is really good. I highly recommend. And for the price, $30 a month, as long as that's what it still is, solid content. So, but yeah, so that's what I had tonight. I'm going to go through and just add some comments to these. So what I'll do is I will say, for example, show VLAN example. And so I'll comment out everything. I'll leave these two uncommented, these two top lines, and I'll comment out everything else, all the examples we went through. And then I'll post these, like I said, I'll post these updates and push all the changes up to the DevNet Expert repository on my GitHub. If you need a link to that, I'll put it in the chat now, just so you have a reference. And then you could always, like I said, ask me on Twitter, or I believe I've also posted the link on Twitter as well. So there's that. Matt says, I'm going through his 10-week DevNet plan, and it's been good so far. A good mix of getting you started, then you have conquered the little quirks you run into. Exactly. Actually, I would say that's key. That's key, is running into the quirks. Because, I think this stream was a perfect example of that, right? we ran into a bunch of quirks in the beginning, and luckily Clay was a really good help with that. Just the Cipher suites didn't match from the Ubuntu 20.04 image with the older iOS-V images. And as you saw, we had to create a config file, SSH config file for that to get that working. It's those little things that kind of teach you along the way. So yeah, totally agree. Like Matt, yeah, I think that 10-week, I actually used bits and pieces of that DevNet plan. Highly recommended. I think it's one of the most kind of complete training plans out there. But I guess anything else? Well, before I close it out here, like I said, I'll comment out these examples. Show version example, and this will be and I'll change this stuff real quick. I'll change the all the passwords. I mean, obviously I don't care if that's on GitHub just because it's my lab environment, and I'm streaming it on YouTube right now, so there's not much privacy. But I might comment, like, for example, the auth secondary, enable password if used. Like, I'll write some inline comments for that. So, thanks, Matt. I appreciate it. I appreciate you being here, and like I said, I really appreciate that use case, that real life use case that we could go through. I know I didn't provide any sort of full solution, but at least you see the example of how to get started and how easy it is, and then from there you kind of just have to let your imagination go and use the powers of Python to figure it out. So cool. Well, I appreciate you guys. I mean, this was a really awesome stream. I appreciate Clay. Thanks. I owe you a ton for helping me in the beginning. Matt and Angel, you guys have definitely, I'm glad you guys are participating. This has been a lot of fun. So, and if you're watching this on demand, I really encourage you, every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, we get started. And like I said, the content will be different. So like tonight we went over Scrapli, but the next stream we might go over REST APIs, or we may go over ACI or APIC EM. Who knows? We'll kind of see. I'm trying to get a comprehensive plan so that way people can pick and choose what streams to join, and then which ones they'll watch video like on demand. So, but that's all I had. Thanks everyone for joining, and I will see you in the next stream on Thursday. All right, have a good night, everyone.
Till I get up, time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah.